You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
For the 250th time, I'm here to tell you welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma, and this week we have the greatest legal mind in the Pacific Northwest. It's Professor Aubrey, ladies and gentlemen. It is not hump day, it's Friends Talking Nerdy.
Oh my god, it's Friends Talking Nerdy and Aubrey is here. Oh my god.
Yes, very special day here. Unfortunately, the Reverend had some timing issues this week and was not able to join us, sadly. So definitely, keeping good thoughts out for the Reverend and the struggles they are going through
A
this
holy
week.
life. I mean, it's a struggle to be a person of faith in today's world.
Yeah, because I've given up faith a long time ago.
I guess it would be nice if you could touch my body. That's Faith by George Michael.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Friends Talking Nerdy After Dark. We're going to get dirty for the 250th here.
No. Have no fear, gentle listener. There will be none of that. What we are going to do today, though, is quite exciting. For the 250th episode, I have decided that I'm going to interview Mr. Tim Jousma all about the podcast, and we can hear all about these 250 episodes, what they mean, where they're headed, and what it's all about. Are you excited?
I'm probably more nervous now than I was for the vasectomy. No, I'm just kidding.
Really? Well, I'll be gentle, I promise.
With a devious smile on her face.
No, I'm just really interested in, because you started this podcast way back in 2018, 17?
2017.
2017. So it has been 5 years that you've been doing this podcast.
We're getting close to there, yeah. July, I believe, was the anniversary of when I purchased my mic, and August 23rd, 2017 is the debut date of the first episode.
Yeah, so we're getting very close to 5 years. So thinking back 5 years ago, 2017, the world was so much different back then. What made you even think about maybe starting a podcast?
I'd had interest in it before, but was too timid, I guess, and too scared and too willing to listen to other people tell me it was a bad idea to not give it a try.
Well, where did the idea come from initially for you?
Initially, it was sort of inspired by some coworkers of mine in Sacramento at the Apple Store. Even though I have not said some good things about the Apple Store overall, that doesn't mean everybody there was bad. There was some good people there. They have they kind of branched off into 2 podcasts now: the Capeless Crusaders and Nerd On podcast. Really good people. But it was one of those deals, like listening to them. Because it was just right around the birth of when podcasts first started really hitting it big, like when Serial was a first thing,
Serial?
Remember that one? Mm-mm. That was the show that, like, the entire first season was about the case of Adnan Syed and how he says he didn't kill his girlfriend.
Oh, so it was that provocative murder porn stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if something's done right, I just like I feel Serial was, I can get behind it, even if it is something silly like that, because it's like every now and then there's a reality show that will catch my interest,
Totally. I just discovered last night, actually, that Lizzo has a reality show recruiting dancers for the Big Girl Dancers. And as a Big Girl Dancer, I was super, super psyched about it. It was awesome. I love Lizzo.
Well, there you go. Yeah. But, just that type of thing in podcast. And also that was like right around the time where like Kevin Smith was, kind of getting big in podcasting. And there were just a number of people that were getting into podcasting at the right time who I, liked and respected, and that made me think maybe I could do this, and from there it was just, finding the right group of people to help, get it going. And I think the person who deserves the absolute most credit for helping get the show off the air is the Reverend Tracy.
Oh, yeah? So tell us about how it happened. So you had the idea that, hey, podcasts are cool, and you moved from Sacramento to Portland, and we're working in the Apple Store. And so what happened? Tell us how we get to the first Friends Talking Nerdy.
Well, it was kind of like one of those things, like you accidentally discover somebody else has an interest that you're interested in as well, and then it just is like kismet. It was kind of like that. I just kind of brought up the idea about the podcast, and the Reverend was like, "That's a great idea," and then we just started shooting back and forth. Now, the stuff that we talked about at the time wasn't, like it was a lot different than what the show has ultimately become. But, it was, the thing about the Reverend is that the Reverend is very detail oriented. I am not. And if I did not have the Reverend at that particular time, it would have been like a ship at sea with no sail. The Reverend was the kind of the guiding force to get me to the spot where I needed to be.
Interesting. So, and what you learned was that though the Reverend was involved in the conceptualization, the organization getting ready for the first episode, the Reverend did not appear on the first episodes of the show. Later, showed up for the 100th episode and has been involved since then.
Yeah, and showed up is not the right term. It's like from what we've talked about it on the show, we did have a falling out for a while, and then I ultimately did, man up and make amends for my end of bungling up that bargain, and in the process have become good friends at that point. But it was very much, I think, very much healing for me to have here on for the 100th, to be able to just say sorry and be able to tell here, what I told them at the 100th episode, that, part of the reason I tried to keep it chugging along was to keep that spirit going, so, and because, even at the toughest parts to where, I was like the most upset at her here, it was, Here's Presence was still very much from the show from day one.
Yeah, right on. It's so cool that the Reverend is such a huge part of the show now, and you guys really run it as a partnership. So that said, why don't you tell me why you keep doing this? Why are we in episode 250? What is it that brings you joy about this, or continues to motivate you to be involved in podcasting?
Bitches and money. No, I'm kidding. No. I just love the creation process. I love coming up with new content. I feel this is, one hell of a creative outlet for me that channels energies that used other ways. Like if I didn't have a podcast and just wanted to ramble about stuff on social media, that that would not be as positive as what a podcast can do. And like a podcast, like I firmly believe that what we have for Friends Talking Nerdy, Hump Day, TNT Review, I firmly believe those, if the right people heard it and gave us a contract, we could make it something. But if we're not, if this is the level of success we are, the maximum level of success the podcast is able to reach, I don't care. It's like one of my favorite songs is Joe's Garage from Frank Zappa. I know it's not your favorite, but what I like about it is that it's kind of a celebration of the creation process. And there's a part near the middle to where the band is all playing out of tune and goofy and weird, and there's a mother yelling in the background, "Turn that down. Why don't you learn some nice songs?" But the point is, you just create. if you have like minds who share an interest and want to be involved in an artistic expression of any sort, you celebrate that.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like, as far as the podcast, like I said, I firmly feel that we do have something here, and I do strive to make it something to where it could potentially make us all money. But that is not the primary motivator here. It can't be, because, think about all of the podcasts that are out there, such as our friends at P&W Haunts and Homicides. Or Was That an Orgy? There are there are plenty of podcasts out there that are just as good, if not better than ours, that still get probably the same amount of listeners that we do. It's just, you just put your stuff out there. If you get lucky, you get lucky, but you just create.
And do you think that, one thing that's always been interesting to me about podcasts is the democratization of media and broadcast. So while, we used to have the radio and it was free with advertisement, the radio selected who you heard and selected what you heard, certainly in late stage broadcasting, in a corporate motivated way rather than an artistically motivated way. And so that's always been really appealing to me about podcasts, this idea that anybody could create something and put it out there. And you, like you said, you never know what other people might be interested in or resonate with or feel connected to. I wonder, is that your total goal with the podcast, is self-expression?
Like, what other goals do you think could be out there, I guess, so I guess I can get a full understanding.
It's communication. Like, do you see your role more as your act of creation or as an act of service or information sharing with other people?
I think it's a little from column A, a little from column B. I think anybody with a platform of any size, no matter how large or small, should do what they can to use that platform for positive ways, not beat people over the head with a message or anything like that. But you can, do good things and, still have silly fun times, and, like we talk about serious stuff on the show all the time. But we also talk about goofy stuff, and we have fun. And, I think, I don't know, the name of the show itself just kind of, I like, it evokes a feeling in me that I like. When you have a group of friends that are just sitting back talking, the topics always can flow from serious to funny to serious to this to that, to everything in between. And there's a vibe in that is just awesome. And again, it is part of the creative process. I do my best to make sure the shows that I put out are the best quality that can be as well, because again, I do want it to be successful. So it's I'm not gonna put on like a William F. Buckley, snooze fest. That's not gonna be me. I'm gonna throw in the random jokes here or there. It's just my nature. But on the flip side, I do like being able to talk about serious stuff, talk about new things I learned, because sometimes it's those discoveries that you learn that can help other people learn, or, I don't know, it's just, there's the power in talking,
The power in talking. So, do you think you could be a radio personality and say you had 3 hours to fill and they were like, this is your radio show once a week for 3 hours? Do you think that's something, do you feel that's similar to what you're already doing, or do you think that would be really different?
That would be a different experience. I mean, could I ultimately do it? I think I could, but for anybody that listens to the podcast and hears me stammer on, I'm not exactly one for improvisation. I can read a script really good, but I don't know. I think the podcast format is, even though it has a lot of similarities to radio, it is also different as well, because to me, it is just you're creating your own show, and it's because I have the reins and I can do with what I want. I'm gonna have a different type of freedom than somebody working in the radio. I mean, like even Howard Stern, when he worked on terrestrial radio, still had rules, but if he had a podcast, he could have done whatever he wanted. Like in our podcast, we can just, throw F-bombs all we want. We don't necessarily have to, worry about, is this advertiser gonna, drop us? Are we gonna lose this demographic? Now, having said that, it's also smart for, indie podcasts like ours to not necessarily have every word be an F-bomb. You do want to attract as big an audience as you can get, I guess. But, it's a different form. It's a different form of expression than radio.
I got you. So, let me ask you this. In thinking about the last 250 episodes of the show, what would you say have been the biggest challenges?
Early on, the biggest challenges were finding people that were committed enough to, be there every week. And, thankfully, I've not had to deal with that in a long time. So that was definitely an early challenge. And I think the other big challenge, which still needs some work on, admittedly, but we are so much better, was getting sound right. Because, I've brought this example up before, but Trey Parker and Matt Stone, when they talk about the early episodes of South Park, they, you can hear it in their voices. They're cringing, doesn't make those early episodes bad by any means. I love the early episodes, but I get their point because, they put so much work into that show every day, and see the progress that show is making, that looking back at all the mistakes you see from your early episodes. Like I listened, listening back to the Reverend's first official time on the show, that was not episode 100. You can't really listen to that episode now, because all I was doing to get Here's audio was putting my microphone next to my iPad, because I had Here up on Facebook Messenger video. And to be clear, that was the best I knew at that time, and I have progressed to get the show to a point audio-wise that I think we're pretty good. I think we're still rough around the edges audio-wise in terms of audio quality, but I think we're at a point now to where, as long as we're providing something that is not boring the audience, they will forgive that aspect now, unlike the early days.
Gotcha. So sound, getting the community right around it.
Yeah, and that is the thing too, because you do have to have the right partners involved for something like this, because the wrong partner, when it just doesn't work, you can tell in the episodes. And that is not, and I want to make that clear, that is not a knock against anybody I've done an episode with at all. It's just, if something doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's like you have to learn not to be overly sensitive about everything you do on something that is this long running. You have to be critical.
You have to be willing to look at what you have done in the past and grow from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just like any kind of learning, really.
Yeah, and to me, it's been a natural progression. I've not, there are some podcasters that will go to Reddit and, hey, can you listen to my podcast and give me feedback? I'm not going to be that person. To me, it's like, I want to learn on my own and do my own research to find to find the answers that I want, because this is about my growing process in terms of, putting this content on the air. If that results in me being successful, making money off of it somewhere down the line, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm just, this is just something you have to do.
So you just feel compelled to keep going with it.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, what words of advice, I guess, would you have for somebody starting out who maybe wants to start their own podcast?
Starting a podcast is much cheaper than you think. If I wanted to start the podcast today, I would really have just spent, I would have only bought the microphone, and that is it. And my microphone cost $50. And, very solid, very good microphone. And if it breaks down, $50 again is not going to hurt the budget. It does not cost much money to do it. I think the only words of advice I would give to anybody is just, it is easy to not see the big picture. You want every episode when you first start out to be as perfect as possible, and you're going to hear every mistake. Once you have released an episode, it is the world's. It is no longer yours. Just learn the mistakes and just focus on keep getting better. It is the long game here, because there's people that are so focused on immediate success that they will hear the little mistakes and see that the listeners aren't coming, and then they give up, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true for you, and it's one of those things I hate saying, but I can't stop myself about, as I get older, I feel like such a curmudgeon when I start talking about like the changes in my perspective at different ages, but it's really true. My perspective has changed so much over time, just having the opportunity to learn so much more about the world. And, now I think the things that I gravitate towards wanting to do, I have more of a long-term interest in them. Like playing guitar, for example, I've done that pretty consistently for a number of years. Dancing, I've done for about 3 years now. And so, yeah, when you think about investing your time and energy into something, you want it to last for a while.
Yeah, and like your dancing, for instance, like if you went in on your first couple of sessions expecting to be like walking out, being like a Paula Abdul music video from the 80s and not getting that result, and you end up quitting, that would have been sad. You would not have done that, obviously, but there are people that will do that will beat themselves up over not being absolutely perfect when a creative endeavor, when, an artistic endeavor, those take time to get right. Like we've brought it up plenty of times, but, I think any creative person needs to watch the Beatles Get Back documentary, because that shows more than anything that any artistic person, no matter what you are doing, you need to put in that time to practice. And for podcasters, that just means you're going to record shitty episodes. Just get them in the can, get them released. If it's shit, it's shit. If it doesn't get many listeners for a particular week, oh well. You live and learn. You keep doing it, because if the fire is there for podcasting and you keep doing it, you will build an audience. And we don't have a big community at all, but the fact that we do have a community is great. One of the top fans for Hump Day with Tim the Professor, Mr. Robert Baldwin, getting weekly show updates from him, about, hey, I listened, and the nice things he says about the show. That is great. He was never the intended target audience. It's like I didn't think when I started the podcast, I'm going to make a show that retired Air Force or retired military people are going to enjoy. But it's turned out to be the case, and that's the beauty of that's another beauty of podcasting. The fact, excuse me, that you can create a community.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm real proud of you looking back. I mean, I think it's a great achievement doing anything for 5 years, really, and certainly something creative and something consistent where you've been putting out content week after week for 5 long years. So huge congratulations on this milestone. And we'll look forward to the Reverend returning next week on episode 251.
Indeed, indeed. And I guess I should close with some words, I guess. Being episode 250, I can't say enough how your involvement on the show has helped, me, over time. You've, initially expressed not having much interest in doing a podcast. Now you have created and co-host a podcast with me, Hump Day with Tim the Professor. So, definitely appreciate, everything you've done to, help with the show. And of course, I don't think I would be here with a podcast at this point if it wasn't for, the Reverend Tracy. It's when you find a good creative partner like that who can kind of has strengths in areas that you don't, that it's invaluable. And the fact that the Reverend can be, so very, thorough, I guess is the right word, really, has helped me out over time in terms of, making me better at doing all this here. Another person I should thank, Christopher Lazarick.
Oh, yeah. Wrote the amazing Friends Talking Nerdy song.
Yes, I noticed, and I will be sure to, I don't know what the term is on Instagram, repost this or whatever, but he indicated that he is going to be playing at a little gig in town in Portland here.
Oh, cool. I'd love to go see him.
Yeah, he's a very good singer, and the fact that, the fact that he came up with this song for me, he did not have to do this. And the song has made the show sound so much more professional than it ever has, but...
Oh, for sure. It makes it feel like I remember the first time I heard it, I just thought, oh, this is like a real podcast.
Yeah, and then you saw what we do.
But the song really set it up for me as, not trash.
Thanks. No, but yeah, I in a lot of ways too. I want a show that deserves that song. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's another. I mean, honestly, there are so many reasons I keep doing this. I mean, one of them too is just to be able to let the world hear that song, because one of the common things you hear in the few reviews that we do have are comments about the song and how great that theme song is. So again, Christopher Lazarick, great artist. In the show description, every single week we have information on where you can go to check out his music and work. So definitely recommend doing that. But just thank you all for listening.
Absolutely, it's certainly the audience that is most important to a podcast.
Indeed. And for any creative endeavor, even if, you're just writing a short story that you give to one person or something like that, you want to have that appreciation from the community, and, the fact that people just keep listening, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. Happy 250th episode.
Well, thank you. You get a Cadillac, baby.
We'll see you all next week.
All right. With that, another episode's in the books. Next Saturday, we will have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
That's all, folks.